Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of catching up with Seth Gordon. He's the CEO at Glacier Supply Group, based here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And I've had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with Seth over the years, doing a little coaching with him. But it's just been fantastic watching his journey. I mean, he's really taken that organization to a new level, really built it so that it's poised to grow. I mean, that's just, again, listening, you'll hear it in the episode, but he's just got such a great head on his shoulders, and he knows where he wants this to go. And he's got a lot of tools around him and a lot of really great people around him that have bought into the vision. And a lot of that, was really galvanized by their adoption of the EOS, or Entrepreneurs Operating System. And he'll talk a little bit about that in the episode as well. But as I said, it's been really amazing watching him transform in his leadership career and, see a lot of the different things that an entrepreneur can become. And I think that's the thing that's most attractive is just, what can you become when you become the leader of one of these distribution organizations? So I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Seth, and I hope you do too. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Moblico. Your customers and employees spend 30% of their waking day on their mobile devices. From custom mobile apps to robust mobile messaging solutions, Moblico provides the most comprehensive end-to-end mobile communication and outbound marketing solution to the wholesale distribution industry. In a recent conversation with someone using their beacon technology, she described sending an instant request for a Google review after someone visited the showroom. Even better, what do you want to tell customers when they enter that showroom? This is the power of mobile communication. If you've been curious about how mobile technology can help your company or are looking to upgrade your current solution, check out what Moblico has to offer at www.moblicosolutions.com. That's Moblico solutions.com. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, hey, Seth, welcome to Distribution Talk, man. It's always good to see you and, catch up on what you've been up to. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, what a treat, man. Great to catch up, Jason. Appreciate you having me on. It's kind of one of those long-time listener, first-time caller situations.
Yeah,
looking forward to it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that. And why don't we jump right into, your background, how you got really pre-distribution and the whole thing. Why don't you give us a little history lesson?
Yeah, absolutely. So went to college in upstate New York for business. So business degree, and, out of school, got into the finance world, and I was on the trading floor at a bank for about 9 years. So picture, one of those people you see on TV, they've got, 6 screens and just kind of buried in spreadsheets, buried in numbers, and really focused on, trading interest rate derivatives. So
yeah,
much different than what I'm doing today.
Definitely so.
But,
sure.
Yeah, and I think early on it was a really, really exciting time. I think I learned a ton, especially around risk management, what's involved in that. Learned a lot of lessons just from a practical, I think, business and finance standpoint. And but ultimately wasn't my calling for the long run, and so shifted gears a little bit later.
Well, you put in 9 years. That was pretty darn good. Yeah, you gave it the best shot possible. What was your day like? I mean, you're talking about long hours, or what was that day like?
Yeah, I think on the trading floor it's pretty consistent because it's really market hours driven.
Okay.
For a while, I was working in San Francisco. That's where I met my wife, and was working East Coast hours. So I'd be at my desk by 4 a.m. and at that point, really kind of getting things ready for the day. And then every morning at it's 5:20 West Coast time, there's always numbers that are published. So it's always okay, what are the new home sales? What are different CPI data, which is obviously extremely relevant today. So those are typically events that are really going to move the market. And so a lot of what our time was spent was, just preparing, making sure our risk is where we want it, reaching out with customers to prepare for the day. and then focus on those numbers because there's a lot of shift in the market at that point. So, and then from the rest of the day on, fielding calls from our customer base to price certain trades for them. And that whole time, we're managing a portfolio and really looking to manage that risk, right? So as the market's moving, we've got to understand our position, how things changing in the market impacts that from a dollar standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And then all throughout the day, it could be someone that's looking to hedge a loan that they have. So it could be a bank, it could be HVAC distributor that's got a loan they're trying to hedge a cap or a floor. I can't remember ever actually trading with a distributor, but anyone looking to hedge risk in the interest rate market, but a lot of hedge funds as well. So that was, folks that are just basically placing bets on the market.
I think it's just really interesting, that you have that background and that perspective that, many people don't in your position, and that work in the distribution field. There's just, there's a lot to that I think you probably brought along with you that actually have really helped you in your career now. But speaking of that, how did you transition out of that world into good old HVAC distribution?
Yeah. So you're saying it's not a natural transition, I think is what, yeah. I remember talking to friends of mine and telling them what I was going to go do. And even to this day, I mean, just their eyes glazing over, not really understanding one, why, and two, what's even involved in that. So yeah, it got to a point where, I think for a long time, I came from a sports background. Like I played baseball in college, and I was always trying to find, okay, now that I need to go get a real job, how can I kind of replace some of that adrenaline or just some of that like competitiveness that I had in the sports world. And I felt like I had that on the trading side. And that's why I was always from day one looking to get involved in that trading floor atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Eventually just kind of ran its course and just wasn't what it used to be, and was really looking for a change of pace, change in career. And so, Leanne and I were just like, okay, well, we want to start, we just got married, wanted to start a family of our own. So, okay, well, what is it that your family does? And her grandpa had started HVAC or really started as a plumbing house, converted to HVAC about 30 years ago. And so, hey, let me go chat with your dad and just kind of understand, like, is there an opportunity and what does the business look like?
Yeah.
And I think it was, I still remember that first in-person conversation because we were at a friend's wedding. I think we were in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're out for coffee or for dinner. And I remember, asking, hey, what's the industry like? What's it all about? And my wife's dad just looks up at the ceiling. He's like, see that stuff right there? See that spiral pipe? Like, we sell that. All the equipment that pumps into that, we sell that. And I was like, holy cow! Like I've never gone into a Starbucks and looked up at the ceiling. I've never gone. That just had never crossed my mind. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Like that's tangible. And coming from a world of finance where really just live in screens all day, like I can't really. That's pretty much it. And not even really seeing how the product affects people. Right. It was really cool to like just that. It was so tangible. Yeah. I could see it. I could feel it. And then just thinking about like, wow, every space I walk into is conditioned in some way. I'm like, wow, that just never crossed my mind. So it was so interesting having those early conversations and just realizing how tangible it is and what's involved. And so that was really that transition was, okay, hey, we want to go start a family of our own. Thinking about moving to Seattle, where my wife's family is from, and just chatting with her dad about what the family business looked like.
It's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that, kind of looking up at the ceiling. I mean, I think that is, growing up in the construction supply business, that was kind of my world as well, that you looked up or you looked down because everything right ahead wasn't going to be relevant to you. So, and again, walking into place, I mean, I still, to this day, 40 years later, I literally, like in an airport, for example, if there's construction going on, I look up into the ceiling and I look for things that I used to mess around with and the strut that holds up the ductwork and things like that, or conduit or whatever it is. But yeah, you still look at it and you're right. It is extremely tangible. You can actually say, I know what this does. And even better, I kind of know how this makes people feel. It's the products that we sell make people feel different and makes their lives easier or, whatever. But no, there's an appeal to that. There's absolutely an appeal to that.
Big time. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, okay. So you started in with your conversations with, Steve a little bit, and you kind of get going here. What was the difference? I mean, what was your kind of first impressions? You get in the business, you're kind of like, oh, what did I get myself into now?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What were my first impressions? Such a great question. I mean, I think the first impressions are realizing how, what goes into running a business. I had no idea. I knew, nothing about small business, nothing about entrepreneurship. And to look at what goes into actually delivering product to a customer, how many people are involved in that whole chain, and just the amount of coordination that goes into that just was astounding. And I think the team atmosphere, that was something that in the finance world, not a lot of it's really everyone for themselves. That was my experience, is that it's very much everyone's kind of looking out for themselves, not a whole lot of teamwork, and recognizing to do this well, to do what we do well, like in HVAC, is you see branches that are so tight together, so well united. Like they serve their customers the best. Like those are the most successful branches. Same with inventory, same with purchasing, AR, AP. So recognizing okay, wow, to me, this is about how do we organize all this human energy that we have within a business? And I never had any appreciation outside of before working in a small business for how challenging and difficult, but yet rewarding that can be. And I think those were some of the early challenges, was recognizing that it takes a team to make this happen, and how do we do that effectively? So that was just something I had not seen professionally. Obviously coming from sports teams, certainly had seen that, but never had seen that professionally.
Well, I think I'm glad you alluded to the sports teams, going back to college, because I mean, I think that has served you kind of pretty well, because you could at least recognize how a team is formed and different roles on the team and how they have to work in concert. But yeah, I mean, I think that fortunately, maybe subconsciously you drew on, some of those previous experiences to really galvanize some of the things that you've done over the years here.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so you got this well, I think one of the things I just kind of expect is that technology probably would have been a little bit different than you were used to, or lack thereof. Let's just call it what it is. Sometimes in a family business, it can be a little frustrating coming from the world you were in before to how do these guys know what they're looking at?
Yeah, and I think that's probably, pretty common just for, I guess, new generations getting involved in businesses. And I think it's so fun to see the way that, our industry and construction in general is just bringing more digital tools to the world. I think everybody alludes to the fact that when you can go on Amazon and get something in hours time that you ordered, the expectations are higher across the board. And I think that was something that certainly felt like, from a digital tool perspective, much different. Finance world, we had everything available to us. Like that was, you're looking at nanoseconds making the difference when it comes to flow of information, and then HVAC much different. Just the much different side. So I think that was for me something that obviously very comfortable. I think our new generations coming up just going to be much more in focus on the digital side, and that was something that I thought, okay, this could be a fun way for me to learn or contribute, because it was a struggle for me to figure out, okay, well, I don't know anything about HVAC. How can I even really help? What can I really do to contribute to the business? And I think looking at our initial web store, our initial website, that was one of the initial things that I could work on as a project to then try to learn the rest of the business. Because I think that was a struggle, was just to figure out what is it that we do and how can I get my arms around it.
I think that's a really good point, Seth, that people coming into, especially a family business, where in this case, it's your wife's family, coming in. How do you make your mark? You can see an attraction. You say, hey, I think I like this. I'm not sure if I really like it. I'm not sure. But where do I make my mark? Because I think that's a struggle, especially in a third generation business. How do you make your mark? And I think technology tends to be a very common path for a lot of folks to go into, especially that you saw some things that distributors, they just weren't engaged with. They just didn't really know much about before. So no, I think that's a great entryway to get into those businesses. So. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package And these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Another thing I like about this company is they do it all in-house. They take on these applications and build them into the platform using state-of-the-art Microsoft technology. No third-party bolt-ons for them. This is important because when you need technical assistance, they are the single point of contact. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insequel.com. That's INXSQL.com. So you got into the business, you've been in there for a little while. You started to, okay, I kind of get the gist. I know I kind of see what I'm doing here. I see, but then the flaws started to come forward, the things that you maybe needed to say, I think we need to change this a little, at least a little bit if we want this to be an ongoing entity, there's got to be changes. I mean, we have to change with the times, not only in the e-commerce space. And I think that's a great place, but then structurally, I mean, the organization, again, it's been around for a long time, but in order to grow, and you've got some hungry competitors out there. You got some folks that are really, starting to move and groove. So what were some of the things that you all saw that you needed to change in order to kind of get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you're looking at it at any business, it better look a lot different 10, 20 years from now. I think that the companies that you don't see today are the ones that didn't change. And so I think, managing change, just to hit on that, I guess, before we get into any specifics, just managing change, I think, is so difficult because it's human nature, right? Like we want things to be the way that they've always been. It's comfortable. But and as soon as things start changing, that's when fear gets built up. That's when kind of that cocoon that we've surrounded ourselves with. And again, just human nature gets really challenging, but we have to, right? We have to adapt. And that's what makes businesses be able to last for, generations. So we've tried to really spend time on the why, and, certainly not great at this, but we're getting better is just talking through why we're making certain changes, and it's with that longevity in mind. Yeah. So in terms of what specifics we did, I think over time really learned that part of my trading background was really focused on the systematic side, and so I had for a long time realized I wasn't very good at what I was at my job. Like I was, most of the trading decisions that I would make were the wrong ones. But I also looked around, and like 98 of the 100 people I knew were doing the same thing. We were all making terrible decisions. Like, how is it possible that we were all picking the wrong side of the market? And so I stumbled across what's called systematic trading. And basically it's a way to create a system that then makes all the decisions for you. So you do all the research and you kind of back test these systems. How would they behave in different markets? And then you come up with the system that then you just follow and execute what it tells you. And I think that kind of system mindset gave me a little bit different perspective on how I really wanted our business to operate, and just seeing the benefits that could come from there's just regular cadences to what we do. It's how we set goals for the quarter, for the year, for multiple years, and how we meet as a team, or all of our teams, right? We've got so many teams, we're geographically spread out. How do we meet? How do we harness, like we talked about a little bit before, how do we harness all that energy in the company? Right. And I think that was the biggest thing that eventually I could pinpoint was, okay, wow, like that is the biggest challenge of leadership. How can we find a way to create a system to help us do that? Because that is, there's so much that goes into that. So I guess kind of a long-winded answer to your question, and it's not really a specific answer, but I think that was ultimately, and it took a long time to kind of get there, but recognizing, okay, how can we just help create this system to run our business? Systematize all those regular decisions and meetings and goal setting that goes on.
Seth, it's really, I mean, I kind of gather where you've gone with this. I think it kind of goes to that, old adage of you want to work on the business versus in the business. And I think that at least that kind of describes kind of building that structure so that you can work on the business, and I think too many times, and this is just, again, my opinion, but again, I've been around this a little while. So I see too many owner operators that they are just so in the business, in the weeds. I mean, they get in there and they get stuck. They get stuck and and everybody relies on them for a decision and all of these things so that the organization really doesn't grow. I mean, it might roll with the economy one way or the other, but it doesn't really grow because there's no vision anymore. The leader of that organization is not able to step back and think. They're not able to step back from a view. And so, again, going back to your finance side, you did the hard work of creating the system and then you executed at that point. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of parallels. I'll put it that way. I'm seeing a ton of parallels in the way you've set this thing up. But if you could talk about EOS for a minute. I mean, this was a big piece of this creation of structure for you, especially the way you harness that human energy that you talk about. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, back on the EOS, I mean, I remember talking to a good friend of mine at, I think it was a Blue Hawk or a Hardy event, and was just talking about, hey, we're trying to do these things in the business. We're having these problems here, and that's common, right? I mean, I think those events are so good because we're always sharing with each other, what's happening, what it is that we're trying to solve. And a good buddy of mine, he's like, dude, I got a book for you. When you get back to your office, there's going to be a book waiting for you. Sure enough, like I got back the next day and there was already a book there. And opened the book and it was Traction by Gino Wickman, the book about EOS. And I never heard about it. And I read the book and I was like, holy cow, like this is it. This is unbelievable. And it's all simple stuff, but it's this full package. It's this full system to help, again, to that human energy comment, like to harness all that and to help us all row in the same direction. And I think that's one thing had really noticed in the past is that, we've got we're all kind of rowing different directions and we're not moving very far. And it takes a lot of effort to move the distance that we're moving. So that's one thing that EOS has really helped us as a business is just to organize how it is that we really just run the business. I don't know how else to put it. And it's really helped us, row in that same direction. And it's super powerful when the team commits to it. And that's what we've done.
This is something that, I hear probably 3-4 times a month. I hear somebody talk about EOS, and it's the entrepreneur's operating system. And it's one of those things that, obviously it is fairly industry agnostic. I mean, it can work in a lot of different types of organizations, but I think as distributors, it's really been a pretty welcome tool that has come in, and I've seen it more and more, especially HVAC seems to have grabbed on, the distribution side has seemed to grab onto this really heavily and move forward with it. But I think, again, it probably wasn't easy at first. Probably there was a few that didn't want to jump on board or didn't understand the why.
Yeah, and that I think that's so normal. And it's, hey, we've been a successful HVAC distributor for decades. Why do we need some system to come in and help us run the business? We know what we're doing. And what's so cool is to see the way our team has responded, because it's like, oh, wow, like, yeah, if we had this in the past, like our leadership team going through and reading the book to start with, and now all of our teams are now running on EOS, and to compare how things were in the past, and then to see some of the early results and some of the early wins that we had, even things as simple as we call it an accountability chart. It's really an org chart, but it also, 5 bullet points per box that just spells out, major responsibilities. And I think just that clarity, there's so much clarity that EOS helps create, whether it's who reports to who, what are the 3 to 5 most important things we've got to get done this quarter or this year, and what that's helped us create. I think there's so much visibility that our team in the past never really knew maybe what direction we were going, what looked like a good week or a good quarter. And so now we share that and we talk about that, every quarter as an entire company. And I think it's been really powerful because it's helped people buy into why we've adopted this new system, why we've gone with EOS. And so as opposed to this being a new fearful thing that we're trying to reinvent the wheel or we're relying on some system to help us do something that we've always done, just the early wins from the visibility and the clarity, especially around roles, I think was super, super helpful and just allowed everybody to buy in very, very quickly.
And I suspect that, your meetings are way more productive than they were in the past, I mean, even though you might have had an agenda and you kind of thought in your head where I wanted to go, this system tends to clarify and streamline that so that, these are efficient and to the point.
Big time. Yeah, I think it used to take me an hour or two to prepare for a leadership meeting because I'd be putting the agenda together. And now the two most important things for the weekly meeting, it starts on time, it ends on time. So everyone knows what time we're kicking off and what time we're ending. Everyone can get back to their day. And there's software as well that helps track, we call them to-dos. So tracks action items that come from meetings, helps track, issues lists. It just has a place for everything. So when something comes up during the week, instead of me having to call Jason, call you 5 times for the 5 things that came up, I can put them on the issues list and then we can talk about them as a group and collaborate to help solve those. And so it leads to overall less meetings and kind of less of the need to check in.
I think you've kind of alluded to this, but I just kind of wanted to clarify. I see, the meetings are getting better. The team is galvanizing. They're kind of going in a direction. What does that do for Seth personally? I mean, what does that do for you? What have you found have been the greatest benefits to you as the leader of that organization?
Yeah, well, what a great question. Yeah, I mean, I feel super spoiled as a leader because I get to stand on everyone's shoulders. And as a result of this, there's so much that now happens in the business that I don't know about. And the coolest, most fun parts of my job are when I get to I just see an email that comes across and it's like, oh, here's this new thing. Like, wow, I had no idea we were doing that. Or here's this, new dealer we signed up, and it's like, holy cow, that's phenomenal. So I think it allows, we call it letting go of the vine. I think it allows our leaders throughout our business to let go and trust their teams to do the work. And I think it's, that was super challenging for me at first because, like you said before, it's so easy to get caught up in the business for the role that I'm in. That's hard. It's hard to let go and focus on bigger picture things that don't have that immediate dopamine hit of responding to an email or
right.
Inbox zero, whatever your example would be. And so, yeah, I mean, the benefits are I get to spend more time working on the business, which again, I just feel super lucky because we've got an incredible team that has totally bought into EOS and we're seeing the results. We're seeing the momentum that it's created for us.
And I think, again, it gives you opportunity to really look at where you're going, really that vision side, but also, look at opportunities out there. Because I think, again, when you're in the weeds, you miss that. You don't get to see those opportunities coming up, whether it's acquisition, whether it's expansion, whether it's new product direction or something of that nature. You can't see it. You just can't. If you're in the weeds, you don't get to see that. So, yeah. If we could switch gears here, you had mentioned this earlier, a Blue Hawk meeting. You've become very involved with Blue Hawk and, Blue Hawk being the, I don't want to say buying group because that's just a terrible name sometimes for these things. Yeah, cooperative.
Co-op, yeah.
Yeah, the cooperative, of distributors. Could you share a little bit about your experience around getting involved with this cooperative and really what did you gain from that?
Yeah, Blue Hawk has been incredible for our company and on a personal level. I think went to some of the Blue Hawk meetings early on, didn't know a single person at these meetings. And so I was just kind of trailing around trying to find people to talk to or trying to learn. And there was a roundtable discussion at one point for finance folks that I sat in on. And I remember talking to someone that's now become a good friend from Wisconsin. And I was like, holy cow, this guy has all these ideas. They're doing all this cool stuff. I'm like, man, we can just learn. There's so many people here and everyone was so willing to share. And so, because, we're not, for the most part, not competitors. And I've been super lucky to have developed found some great mentors through Blue Hawk and folks that have become really good friends of mine in different parts of the country. And we collaborate so much. Hey, what are you doing to solve this problem? What are you doing to solve that problem? And it's again the stuff that our industry. It's not a high tech industry where things are changing every 3 months. And so we're all trying to raise the bar. We're all trying to get to the next level of our businesses, and how can we help each other? And that's what Blue Hawk has been for me and for Glacier. It's been wow, what a great community. And it really is a special culture. And I credit, Lance and the rest of the Blue Hawk staff for creating an incredible, not just for the staff itself, but for all the distributors, and to learn and collaborate and just share best practices. And so that's what Blue Hawk has been to me, has been the best resource for us to network and to learn. And just like our own business, just create really, really meaningful relationships.
I think a lot of people, when they think about these cooperatives, the first thing is rebate. That's kind of the first, first attraction, or just the first thing, or the only thing they think about if they're not involved with these. but you're describing something way beyond that rebate. And maybe that was the catalyst to get you all involved. But, again, you found, these peers out there that are willing to share. I think that's the even crazier part, that these folks are absolutely willing to share what's worked for them and what didn't work so hot for them. So,
Yeah.
So you've taken a lot of information, you've taken a lot of cues from these folks, and you decided to give back. So you joined the board. So why did you raise your hand and say, it's time for me to get on the board and give back?
Yeah, I was asked to join the board, and frankly, it was just like, holy cow! I just was super, super flattered. I'd only been in the industry for 5 or 6 years at that point, and felt like I knew nothing, and still oftentimes feel that way, right? But it's like
Sure.
talking to every Blue Hawk event, I'd just show up with a list of 20 questions and certain people I wanted to go ask those questions to, and maybe I guess I was the squeaky wheel that someone said, "Hey, yeah, he really cares." I mean, I guess that's the best way I can put it. So I guess that was kind of the way I put my hand up. Maybe it was unintentionally, just being the annoying guy running around asking everybody all these questions about how they run their businesses. And so, yeah, I mean, getting the call to be asked was like one of the greatest professional honors. I couldn't believe that was something that was being thought of, and then to be in the room for the first board meeting. I think it's easy to be in a leadership role and think like, oh, maybe I don't belong. I don't know. I don't know if I'm in my kind of that classic imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
And then sitting in that first board meeting, I was like, wow, like these are my people. Like this is it. And everyone in the room so committed to their own business and so committed to Blue Hawk. And really, to me, a huge inflection point just in terms of my own professional development. So yeah, awesome, huge honor, and was super flattered to be a part of it. And yeah, I think this is, I'm winding down. It's been almost the end of the 3-year term here, but yeah, been just a huge honor to be a part of that and to help the co-op as we navigate, a pretty interesting time, especially when it comes to the overall consolidation of the industry.
Absolutely. And I think about this stuff, Seth, that, I've been around these groups a long time, and seen kind of the advent of them when they actually started to come into prominence early in my career. And it absolutely requires people like you, people like you coming in. And I understand that not feeling like you belong at first, I get it. I was really young when I was asked to be, part of the board for the trade association I was in. I mean, I was the youngest guy in the room by far, and I'm feeling like, well, what do I have to contribute? And then you start listening. It's like, well, I think I do have a couple things to contribute, and at least,
Totally.
and I can ask questions, and that starts a different direction. So I think it's really important that, young people, that they do raise their hand and they accept that they are a huge part of the success of that organization and they're absolutely needed. So, it's always my pitch in these things, hey, raise your hand in your industry, be a part of. If you're, in the middle, then you're going to have opportunities, but people are going to be willing to share. The more you are willing to share, it's going to come back to you tenfold. I just
Totally.
absolutely believe that. And I've seen that as well. So
yeah, you get what you put into it. I think, there's folks that you can go to a Blue Hawk event or a Hardy event and you can sit there and just take in the information, just be the passive. And there's value to doing that. The folks that lean in, try to meet other people, try to network, try to ask questions, like that's, you get what you put into it. And it's incredible to see the community that gets built and how just what happens when you start to really like put yourself out there and just be vulnerable at those type of events.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest things about the industry that I'm in and that you are, the industry I serve, is that there's some really good people, just nice, really people that are willing to share. And they're, if you're struggling with something, they're willing to pick up the phone. They're willing to share, hey, here's what worked for us, or I don't really know what what to do, but maybe this person knows. And but they are going back to kind of looking at your finance and your trading. Everybody was in it for themselves, as you said. But in this environment, they're not. And it's always been fascinating to me how willing people are to share and to make sure that you're okay. And that's a pretty darn good feeling. I mean, especially, as you're growing your business, it's awful nice to have those allies around you.
Yeah, well, and you've got lots of experience with this, but yeah, it can be a lonely place, right? Like running a
Absolutely.
business can be a lonely place. And so, yeah, having a group, having mentors, advisors, good friends, like people to lean on, yeah, super, super critical.
Yeah. Well, hey, Seth, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me a little bit and chat. And God, it's always great catching up because I remember when you started out, when you kind of came in and you into the family business. And, it's just a pleasure to see your journey, man. It's really great to see this going.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Jason, so good to catch up. Yeah, you've been an early mentor to me, and just super appreciate the honor to be asked on here today.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching the journey continue, man. So best of luck. Look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. A couple of years ago, I was introduced to Profit2 through a client who had been working with them for over a year. This client had been struggling with improving gross margins and was looking for a service to help them recapture some of their lost opportunities. Through their work with Profit2, it took about a year, but they were able to bump their gross margins by almost 2 points. For this distributor, and frankly for anyone in the business, this margin enhancement was a big deal. Beyond the pricing service, Profit2 has started helping clients look at cost and rebate management. If you want to discover hidden margin opportunities, come take a look at what Profit2 can do for you. Learn more at www.distributiontalk.com/profit2. That's profit with a number 2.